What's up, trainers? Jumpmaster here, bringing you exciting Pokemon Go news and updates with tips and tricks on how to enhance your Pokemon Go gameplay and experience. Today, we're going to be going over some more Ferocious Cup practice battles with one of my scrim partners, TheBullFrogger. Now, TheBullFrogger did finish Season 1 as a Challenger ranked competitor, and he is a pretty advanced strategist. So we will be using just random teams here. This is a best of 7 set. So let's see how we do. I did not wake up on time today to make it to the Richmond tournament. Actually woke up a couple hours after my alarm was supposed to have gone off. So I was unable to make it to that, but I do look forward to the next one that will be held here on the East Coast. So going into match 1, we do lead with Umbreon, and he comes out with Skuntank. This is a pretty set matchup right here for the lead, so we're going to build up some energy, and then we're just going to switch into our Ferret, which does no Brick Break and Hyper Beam. So we will block that first crunch, and we're going to let the second crunch come through and just build up a little bit of extra energy on the Brick Break. Trying to just bait one of his shields here. So we will go into the Brick Break. We do get the Excellent and the Shield Bait. So we will launch another Brick Break at the Skuntank. We know it won't do too much damage, and then he will probably get to a crunch before we can get to a Brick Break, as he does. So we let this go through, and then we're going to come back out with our Umbreon and launch a Foul Play at the Skuntank. So we do have switch advantage, and he comes in with Minun. This is a matchup that I'm still fairly set with right here through my practices. Since the last resort went through, I will switch and mirror the Minun. We know that this is probably going to be a discharge, so it is, so we do not shield it. We do build up to a Thunderbolt, and we will use Thunderbolt against this Umbreon, since he switched into Umbreon. So we know that both of us have Umbreon and Minun, and we both are set at 1 shield. We know this Foul Play will do a lot of damage, but it will not KO. So I went for the discharge here to try to shield bait him. I did not get it, so I should have went for the Thunderbolt, but it did allow me to get to a second discharge, which will pull the second shield, I believe. Yep. And then he will use some energy right here, but I know that my Umbreon in the back has a lot more health, so I come out with my Umbreon. And we know this right here is probably going to be a last resort, so we will shield it up. And now we're both out of shield, so I charge just a little bit of extra energy, and I will use this last resort to KO that Umbreon. Out comes his other Minun, and we're just going to build up to, I think, Foul Plays and throw Foul Plays at this Minun. As you can see, Thunderbolt does do quite a bit of damage to Umbreons if you were using Minun. And we know that we'll get to this Foul Play before he gets to his discharge. So that will be the end of round 1. That will KO that Minun. Going into game 2, alright, we see I go with Minun, Skuntank, and Nidoqueen. Just a little different strategy here. So we do catch the lead. He starts with Suicune. So he will immediately switch into his Skuntank. I charge up just a little bit of energy, and then I switch into my Skuntank. We know that this is probably going to be a crunch, so we let this come through. And now it's just a boring neutral match of Skuntanks throwing crunches at each other until one dies. Seeing that this is another crunch, we know we can survive it, so we will just sit here and build up and launch yet another crunch at that Skuntank. Hoping to KO, and we do. Now we have switch advantage, and out comes his Suicune. So we will come back in with our Minun, and we're just going to use discharge on the Suicune. No real big, hurry to get to the Thunderbolt, trying to bait those shields. We do get 1 shield bait, so we switch into Nidoqueen as soon as this Alola Tails comes out, knowing that we can just farm it down. As you can see here, there was a little bit of lag in that match, but it didn't affect either of us really. We do choose to burn one of the shields, and we just farm down that Alola Tails. We know that this is going to be a Suicune, so we're going to launch an Earth Power in hopes for the defense drop, but we do not get it. So we will launch yet another Earth Power. I don't think that he knew how much energy was stored on the Nidoqueen at the time, so he does block that. We are going to let this Bubble Beam come through, which is still yet not enough to KO, but it does kill our attack. In comes our Minun, and just a Spark will take out that Suicune. So going into round 3, we do lead with Alola Tails and have Umbreon in the back, and we choose to bring our Lairon this time as a counter to Charmers. So here we have Alola Tails versus Suicune, and I'm pretty comfortable with this matchup. So we know this is probably going to be a Bubble Beam. We will shield that, although it still did drop our attack, so I should not have shielded that right there. That was a mistake by me. As you can see, Bubble Beam really does not do that much damage to Alola Ninetales. So we will launch the Psyshock off just to try to go ahead and KO the Suicune as quick as we can. This will be another Bubble Beam, so we let it come through. Our attack is extremely down now, so he does come in with Skuntank, and I do choose to switch to my Lairon. Lairon can do neutral damage to that Skuntank, so this was probably a good choice on my end. I will build up some extra energy here, trying to go for that Body Slam, but I just couldn't get to it. I think it was a CMP tie. Yeah, it was a CMP tie. So we let that other Crunch come through, and we're going to launch this Body Slam. We do get his first shield, and then we will launch the second Body Slam, as we had that energy built up in the back. And we do get his second shield. So we're in a pretty good position here. We got both of his shields on that Skuntank, and we got to a third Body Slam to KO, deleting that Skuntank and all the energy that I had stored. So we do choose to come in with our Alola Ninetales here for the mirror, knowing that Umbreon in the back is not a very good choice. But I will switch into him, knowing that at least I can get to the Slash Resort, and that should KO that Alola Ninetales. Oh, my apologies, it doesn't. So I do have to build up to a foul play, but that is GG's for that game. Going into game 4, I choose to run a strategy with Skuntank in the front, Alola Tails in the middle, and Bibarel in the rear. So we see that we have Skuntank versus Vaporeon. He's going to be doing a whole lot of damage with those water guns. We know this is Aqua Tail. We're going to let that come through. We build up to the Sludge Bomb, hoping that he doesn't shield it. And he does let that go through, which does just a massive amount of damage to that Vaporeon. And you can see those poison jabs just do so much damage. In comes his Umbreon. Oh, excuse me. In comes his Umbreon. We should have went for the Sludge Bomb right there, but instead I had already pressed the Crunch. That was a mistake on my part during this game. So down goes our Skuntank, and we choose to come in with that Alola Tails. He switches to Skuntank, and we immediately switch into our Bibarel. We are up a shield, I believe. Nope. That was our first shield. He still has 2 shields, so we will use this Surf on that Skuntank. He will shield that, and then we will just continue to do massive amounts of damage with that water gun. We know this is a Crunch, so we are going to shield that up, and we're going to just sit here and continue to do as much damage as we can with water gun and launch the Surf off. We know that he has Umbreon in the back, and our Pokemon in the back is going to be Alola Ninetales. This Crunch should KO my Bibarel, but in comes my Alola Tails to knock out that Skuntank. His Umbreon comes in, and we know that we have the positive matchup here with the Alola Tails, so we will just get to that Psyshock and launch the first Psyshock towards that Umbreon. It doesn't do too much damage, but that Charm will just delete it. Going into game 5, we lead with Umbreon. We bring Lairon in the middle and Minun in the rear. So he catches us on the lead with the Alola Ninetales. I immediately switch into my Lairon, And he immediately switches into his Vaporeon to counter that Lairon, which is a very good play on his part. So we will use this Body Slam. It's not going to do too much to him, but we know we can get to another one, so we'll use that Body Slam once again on that Vaporeon. He will shield that up, and we know that this is going to be a Aqua Tail, and it will KO our Lairon. And I think I come in with Minun here to just go ahead and start building up some energies. We know that this is going to be a Aqua Tail, but we want to conserve our Minun, so we do shield that up, and we will use this Discharge to go ahead and KO that Vaporeon. He comes in with Umbreon, so now he knows that my two Pokemon left is indeed Minun and Umbreon, so I do use a Thunderbolt, and after seeing me get that Thunderbolt to go through, I was not going to shield this, but I did. I shouldn't have. I immediately switched into my Umbreon, knowing that he is trying to delete that Minun. And then he comes in with Alolan Ninetales, which is not good for my Umbreon whatsoever. As you can see, this is a completely different Umbreon from the other games. This is one with Outlast Resort from test running to see how many other matches you could possibly win without Last Resort. So I was running an Unlast Resort Umbreon for this match. We know that this is going to be a Psyshock, which isn't enough to KO, but it is pretty close. It puts us in KO range for that Umbreon when it comes in. So this match is pretty much already lost. In comes his Umbreon, and all he has to do is just snarl me down. So that's that game, and moving into the next game. I think we lead Minun, Nidoqueen, and bring Umbreon in the back. So he chooses to lead with Minun. This is a mirror matchup, so we are just going to build up some energy here. And after we get to that Thunderbolt, we're going to try to swap into our Nidoqueen. We let this Discharge come through. In comes our Nidoqueen. He immediately switches out into his Vaporeon. We will use this Earth Power in hopes of getting a defense drop. He chooses to block it, and that Water Gun is just deleting our Nidoqueen. So we are going to let this Aqua Tail come through and knock out the Nidoqueen. But we come in with the Minun, and we know we've already got one of his shields down, so we will use this Discharge. It's almost enough to KO, and then we just use Spark to just go ahead and knock that out. In comes his Umbreon, so we will go ahead and throw this Thunderbolt at him. I think he lets this go through, and since that Umbreon has way less health than my Umbreon, I do take the chance and go ahead and switch into mine. I will use the shield on his first Last Resort, and in comes his Minun. I'll go ahead and start using Last Resorts towards this Minun. We need to go ahead and get rid of that. We know that that Thunderbolt can do massive amounts of damage towards our Umbreon. So we do let the first one come through, and we're going to build up and just use Foul Play to go ahead and try and KO that Minun. Down goes the Minun, and in comes his Umbreon, which has more health than me, but I've already got a Last Resort built up, so I will use that. And he does not shield it, he lets it come through. As you can see, I tried to switch there, so I will shield up this Last Resort and then immediately switch into my Minun. And I'm going to get to this Discharge and use the Discharge. I could have went Thunderbolt, but we know that he will use his last shield right here. Oh, I did go Thunderbolt. So I used the Thunderbolt, just going for the KO. He will use the shield. And then we're just going to try to build back up to a Discharge and get that Discharge off. And that should KO his Umbreon. And it does. And going into the next game, we choose to lead with Bibarel, Umbreon in the back, and have, I think that's Nidoqueen in the middle. So we lead Bibarel, and he leads Alola Tails. I'm pretty comfortable with this matchup right here. I'm willing to let my Bibarel go, so I will build up to a Surf and use this first Surf. He does block that, so I immediately try to switch into my Nidoqueen. It wouldn't let me, so I had to re-switch. We know this will be a Psyshock, so we do block that. And he swaps into his Vaporeon. So we build up to this Earth Power, and in hopes of getting that defense drop once again. He does let that go through. After noticing that he lets it go through, we decide we'll just let that Aqua Tail come in, and he can KO our Nidoqueen. So we do switch back into a Bibarel, knowing our Water Guns will KO that Vaporeon, and we're going to go ahead and use Surf once this Umbreon comes in. We know that this Umbreon is going to KO our Bibarel. Somehow managed to get to a second Surf, and as you can see, those Water Guns just do so much damage, so we do get the shield from him. And this Foul Play will KO that Bibarel, but in comes our full health Umbreon, and we're up one shield. He comes out with his Alolan Ninetales. We will use Last Resort right here to do all that damage that we can to it. Now we're just going to sit here and try to farm it down as much as we can. So we have a Last Resort built up. I did not notice that his shields were gone while playing this game. I should have just started to go ahead and use Last Resorts. I definitely was not paying any attention at all. But it still worked out, you know, so we're just going to continue to use Foul Play on this Umbreon for the remainder of the match. Although we could use Last Resort right here, we did use the Foul Play. And I think he launches a Last Resort at us right here. Yep. In hopes to KO, but it just was not enough. So we do build up to another Foul Play. And once again, launched that. We could have launched at least 2 Last Resorts and ended this, but major thanks to everybody out there that watches my channel and supports me in my hobby, which is Pokemon Go. If you like my channel and the content and you would like to see more stuff, please hit that like button and subscribe down below to continue receiving awesome Poke videos. Jumpmaster out.